And welcome to Today Mañana. Thank you for joining us. We're really excited about today's show. I think it's going to be really awesome, really amazing. We've got a great creator on. So we're thrilled to have you here. I'm Alex Urpí. This is Xavier. Today Mañana. We're presented by Emergent Financial Services. We are powered by Cristel Noel State Farm Agency, and we are partnering as always with Forward Adelante and Sombrero's Mexican Cuisine and Cafe. So we're glad to have you with us here today. We got a jam-packed show coming up. I know a lot. We're going to have Fernando Garay. He's a serial entrepreneur. He's the founder of House of Cuts Barber Studio. It's going to be incredible. We're going to start a little back and forth. I know you have a couple things on your mind today that you've been talking about for the last week.
It's incredible. I mean, we talked a little bit about this. We talk about this all the time. However, just this morning I walked in and there was 2 articles, which, as you know, they get my blood flowing when anybody talks about the Fed, they get my blood flowing. Right?
For those who don't know, if you've been an Emergent client for years, the Federal Reserve is like one of those things that shows up frequently on commentaries.
And
the snarkiness really comes out. If Xavier doesn't appear to be snarky on this show, say the words Federal Reserve, and it all starts coming out.
Well, the interesting thing, I think it was on Tuesday, right? We're driving down to Roanoke, my wife and I, Jan, and she starts asking me, right? And by the way, that drive is a beautiful drive. You had the snow on the mountains,
really?
And it's incredible. Because when you drive in the summer, it's all green. One side had snow, the other one didn't, because I guess depending on how the sun was spectacular. But anyway, so she says, she gets all this information, right? She's listening, and they talk about inflation, and they talk about monetary policy, and they talk about all these things, right? And she says, I'm a little confused, so maybe you can, clear some things up with me, right? Of course, I had a 2-hour ride. I don't have a 2-hour show here, but it's funny. So it came to mind, I think it was last night, about 2 weeks ago, if you remember, the pastor, our priest, before he did his sermon, which is the best way to start a sermon with a joke. I mean, I have to admit,
it's classic.
It's fantastic, right? I mean, it really gets you going. But anyway, so he had this. He talked about this cartoon, right? And this cartoon had a person and a dog, right? And so the cartoon is exactly the same. So one is the person talking to the dog, and the other one is the dog listening to the person, right? And so the person's saying, and I can't remember the name of the dog in the cartoon, so I'll just use my Chester's name, right? So the cartoon basically has this where you have the writing, and it says, okay, Chester, you got to be a big boy. Whatever you do, don't lick the grass, because if you lick the grass, you know what can happen, Chester. So make sure you're a good boy. Stay here, Chester. Don't move, right? So on the other side, it's what the dog is hearing. The dog is hearing Chester, blah, 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 Chester, blah, 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 Chester, right? And so I feel that's the way it is sometimes when people listen to, and we talk about finance. When you listen to these shows on TV and they talk about all these things that go on, especially monetary policy and inflation and anything that goes on with the government trying to balance its budget and what our debt is, and so it gets so confusing. But worse than that, it's the stress level that I think it creates for people, right? So I said I'm just quickly going to kind of give a quick scenario, and you have to stop me if I go way out of hand.
All right?
If I go on too deep into the woods, or the weeds, as they say, you have to stop me.
When you say the words negative interest rates, I'll stop you.
Well, it's going to be my first sentence. Come on, you can't do that. You can't do that. No. So anyway, so I was thinking about how do I make this kind of simple so people understand what the Federal Reserve is, because let's face it, it's the Federal Reserve, along with the rest of the central banks, is a fictitious, if you want to call it that, that's what I call a fictitious bank, right? So let's say Alex Urpí loves Legos, right? And he racks up, it's true, I know it's true, yeah. And so he wraps up around $10,000 worth of Lego debt. And he has no more credit, in his credit card, 10,000 max he can have, right? So he sits there, he goes, well, I want to buy more Legos, but I can't. So what does Alex do? He takes his Legos and builds this little bank on the side, right? And he has that bank, right? Say, okay, I'm going to have that bank send money to my account on my real bank, right? So then you get that money and you pay off your credit card, right?
Easy.
0%. Done, right? So in essence, you sit here and go, wait a minute. So basically the Federal Reserve creates money out of midair. And in the old days, it literally printed money. Today, we're much more advanced, so they have to
add little zeros.
They just push. No, they just have to
end.
push a little button on the computer. Boom, done. And they send money to all the banks, right? So the issue is, when you think about what the Federal Reserve is doing, is that in order for them to do that, what they do is they go out and they buy all the debt that they can from the U.S. government, right? So when you consider that, I mean, how does a government, I mean, balancing budgets, you and I have to balance our budget. We can't, you know, we can't spend more than we earn. We can certainly borrow, but eventually
it comes. You get hit with the 60%
absolutely.
credit card.
I mean, sooner or later you have to pay your debt. Cities are in the same boat. Counties are in the same boat. States are in the same boat. Federal government, don't have to, right? Why? Because they can issue bonds, right? In the old days, how did it work? In other words, you issued bonds, but people would look and say, all right, the United States of America, is that a good country to invest in? Yes, I'm willing to invest, right, in that country.
But you couldn't do too many. You couldn't issue too many bonds, because at some point people are like, you have too much debt. If I'm going to buy your bond, you have to pay me 10%.
That's correct, exactly. You push the interest rates up, and that costs money, right? I mean, the more interest you pay, the more money you are paying, the more money you have to borrow. So come 2008, and what happens around the world? We have the financial crisis, right? And every single central bank says, we need to bail out these governments. We need to bail out whatever we can, because otherwise our financial, you know, the whole system will collapse, right? So they start printing money everywhere. Little by little, they say, wait a minute, this is fabulous. In other words, we not only print money, we lower interest rates to as close to zero as possible. And when you think about it,
everything that was supposed to happen, all the theories would have said you can't do that. You turn into Zimbabwe, and your loaf of bread costs $1 million, but it didn't happen.
So, I mean, exactly. Everybody was talking about inflation. Inflation is going to go out of hand. I mean, we're going to have 20% inflation, 30% inflation. Well, we didn't. I mean, inflation was 2% or less, right, from 2008 till even mostly today, right? So the question is, well, why is that happening? And two, so you have a Federal Reserve. Are they part of the U.S. government? No, they're independent. They're not part.
Totally
so you look at the U.S. debt, you don't see anything. I mean, the Federal Reserve doesn't show up there. And I want to give people this picture. And I know when we talk trillions, it's like unbelievable, right? But the size of the U.S. economy is $20 trillion. Huge, the biggest in the world, right? That's why we're the best, right? It's a huge economy, fantastic. All the banks, all the central banks around the world have raised over $24 trillion, created out of midair. So you think about it. They've, out of nothing, I mean, we produce things to create the 20 trillion. I mean, people work, people produce the show, right? Producers, right? Exactly, start businesses. They created $24 trillion out of midair. That's the size of the U.S. economy. So where did all that money go, right? Bonds are at zero. All that money goes to banks. So you tell me, you know the answer to this, right?
What did the banks do?
So what did the banks do with this?
Let's see, if I'm a bank and I got a bunch of money, but I don't want to lend to people, I think I'd buy stocks.
There you are.
I don't know, that's what I would do if I was a bank.
So there's the inflation right there, right? I mean, if you're looking for inflation, the concept of inflation is that if that little bank, right, that Alex created out of Legos, keeps giving Alex money. He's going out there and buying Legos like crazy.
Yeah.
If, 10 million people like Alex do the same thing, they create their own little bank, and what happens? And Lego's trying to produce, and it says, wait a minute, I can't keep up with demand. I have to raise the price, right, of the Legos. Boom, inflation, right? What happens is, in 2008, when people got their money, right, they paid off their debt. They didn't go out and buy more things. So the bank had all this money, and businesses weren't knocking on the door of the Fed and at the door of their banks and saying, "I need to borrow because I'm starting a business."
Or the banks probably also didn't want to at that point in time.
For the banks, it was the best deal because you remember they're leveraged at least 7 times, right? So they can take free money from the Fed because the money's free at this point. It's costing them zero, right? And invest it. That's a great deal, right? So that's where the inflation went. So when people talk today about what is going on, right? First and foremost, at least in my opinion, we're never, I shouldn't say we're never.
Never say never.
In my lifetime, I think I can say, in my lifetime, I'm never going to see interest rates higher than they are today. It's just not going to happen. Why? We've got they're thinking about issuing another $1.4 trillion,
COVID stimulus.
Of the COVID stimulus. Where's that money going to come from? They have to issue debt.
They have to print it.
Right? They have to print it. So if they raise interest rates, what's going to happen to the U.S. government? They're going to have to pay more money, raise more money because of the interest going higher. Every country in the world has figured this out. Europe has even figured it to the point that I can literally charge negative interest rates. What does that mean? That means that the people...
interest rates.
I know. I got to finish this one, though. So you get $100, you give it to your government, they give you back 99 at the end of the year. That's negative interest rates, right? We're going there. I mean, you can. Here, right? I said it on live radio, whatever this is. Right? So that everyone in the comment
going negative
section, interest rates in this country.
If you're watching the show, you need to write this down because I want you all to comment.
It's terrible. Well, so here so Jerry says it's terrifying. Yes, it's terrifying for whom? For savers. But for borrowers, it's the greatest game in the world. Who's the greatest borrower in the world?
U.S. government.
Thank you.
Well, was it Norway? I think one of those countries a couple of years ago got to negative mortgages.
Yes.
So if you were
Denmark.
Denmark. Yeah. There you go. Like you go to buy a house, and it's like, guess what? We'll pay you to buy this house.
You can't wait to that.
Yeah, that would be beautiful. I'll happily take that.
I'm already done.
You're on the wrong end of that equation.
But you, yeah. So it's just amazing how these things happen, right?
So you've got this, right? So you're hearing this. We're hearing Xavier make his prognostication on low interest rates. Not basically, if that's the case, I can't imagine. So we're not looking. You're not saying inflation's going to skyrocket, even though we hear about it on the news and people get worried about it. So what are people supposed like? What's the takeaway? If you're thinking, what do you need to do as an individual to react because you're seeing on the news, you're seeing, are they going to balance the budget? They can't. They don't have to print money. They're going to spend another $2 trillion. What will happen to inflation? You see all these things coming together. What are you supposed to think about it in terms of how it affects you as an individual? That apart from the negative mortgage rates.
So the issue here is not that I have a crystal ball, right? I don't have a crystal ball as to what's going to happen to inflation. And I think most people, they go to the store, you go to the grocery store, whatever, and last week the milk was, $3.50, and today it's $3.99. That's inflation. That's a huge rise in the price of milk, right? The issue is that technology keeps many other prices down. And so, today, and this is what I was talking today, Powell said, that was yesterday or today, Powell said that inflation is not a concern, that, him and his fellow Fed members realize that inflation is pretty much still around 2%, and if it goes a little higher, it's not a big deal, right? So my feeling is I don't think we're going to see runaway inflation, and it's because in order to see runaway inflation, you have to have an economy that's running at full blast and it wants to expand. And I don't think,
post-COVID, we're not there yet.
We're not there yet now, and from everything we read, it's going to take a little longer than I think most of us would have liked to see happen. So I don't see inflation being an issue. What does that mean for an investor? For an investor, again, it always depends on what your goals are, what your needs are. Whether you're a retiree, there are ways to create more income in your portfolio for people like yourself. Obviously, you want a lot of growth, right? You want to be aggressive in the market and make as much money as possible. And so, it depends on the person. But I guess what I'm trying to say is you have to take everything you hear on television or read with a grain of salt. You can't get nervous, and sometimes maybe the best thing is just get the volume to zero or shut the TV down completely or the radio down, right? And then just take a step back because there are always those that think the world is ending tomorrow, and then there are always those that think that the world's never, going bad, right? So we're somewhere in the middle, I'm sure.
I feel like my philosophy for individuals, I think you should kind of boil it down to, for those who've watched, if you've watched It's a Wonderful Life with Jimmy Stewart, there's the great scene where it's the bank run on the bank, and Jimmy Stewart is trying to convince everyone not to panic. And he goes to them, then Mr. Potter, of course, is the nasty little guy with his fingers and everything. He buys up the bank, he's taking over the town, and Jimmy Stewart's like, Potter's not selling, Potter's buying. Why? Because we're panicking and he's not.
Exactly.
Right? And so the key is don't be the panicking
person. Yeah.
You don't want to be Mr. Potter either, but be Jimmy Stewart. He is calm, but he knows what he's doing. He's trying to just save for the future. He's trying to be ready for what comes, right? Knowing that he has what he needs for his family, you know, if things go south.
And that's what's important. I mean, the important is to understand that preparedness is the most important thing. And so I was reading literally this morning. It's funny how you read things sometimes. So this was from San Agustin, right, from the book that you gave me. And he said that, you know, we all have flaws, right? And so he gave an example of, you know, there's a little boat, and the little boat has a little, you know, little hole, right? And if you don't take care of that boat, of course, eventually it's going to sink. And so, you know, the bottom line is that, yes, we all make little mistakes, right? And the key is to focus on what we've done or the mistake that we have in front of us and try to fix it, try to see how else we can manage that mistake and make it into something positive. And I think with regard to, you know, like small businesses is an area that I think is so critical, right? And we talked about, I mean, the Super Bowl the other day. I mean, you and I were talking about the end of the first half. Yes, I mean, we just said, you know, you haven't played very well. You're, at that point, I forget if they were losing 10-7 or 13-7. I can't remember. Or 14-7. I think it was 14-7.
14.
Yeah, 14-6. 14-6, okay.
14-6.
And, you know, instead of just letting the clock run out, going into halftime and say, okay, what are they doing to us that we can't score any points, and how do we fix it?
They give Tom Brady
give Tom Brady a chance and, you know, almost put the game on. Well, obviously, now we know they put the game on ahead, right? Know. So there's a mistake, right, that he made. And they weren't able to overcome that, right? So I think of small businesses, and small businesses are a lot of times in that category because they have a dream, and their dream is their business. And so they start their business, and all they can think about is, how do I make my business grow? How do I expand it? You know, what is it that I have to do?
That's your passion.
Exactly. You know, and so they think about advertising, they think about operational costs, they think about products. And the one thing they don't think about is mañana, right? In other words, what happens, you know, when the time comes where, yeah, the business is good, but I'm ready to fold it, right? And I remember reading an article that said about 34% of small business owners don't know if they can retire when they're 65.
Wow.
Right? And that's a sad statement because...
Yeah, which is sad because you know that their businesses must be valuable.
They are.
So if they don't know if they can retire at 65 and you own a small business, what the real issue is that your money, your value, your assets are tied up in the business. And it's not easy always to access when you hit 65. It's not like you can turn 65 and say, okay, good, now let me take money out of 30% of my business's value. Well, it doesn't work that way.
And you talk about that all the time, the capital. I mean, there's two types of capital. There's the personal capital and the company capital. But also you have to create something that you have some capital so that when the time comes, you know you already have something.
You have to be able to transfer little by little over time some of your business's capital into personal capital, into your own bucket, so to speak, right? Because it gives you the flexibility at the end. I mean, if your children want to inherit the business, now you don't have to sell it. You've transferred capital from the business to yourself over time by saving it, by, you know, opening up. There's so many vehicles. They all have acronym names: SEP IRA, Simple IRA, Traditional IRA, Roth IRA, 401k. There's so many acronyms, but they all really mean the same thing, which is transferring capital from your business to a savings account of some kind. And it's there so that you don't run into that scenario. Because let's face it, I mean, even if you don't have kids that want to inherit your business, you get to the point where you're 65, now you need to somehow sell off a piece because you haven't saved anything. Well, if you go to sell your business, the guy on the other end is sitting there saying he needs to sell because he's going to retire. Is he going to offer you 100% on the dollar? No, he's going to be Mr. Potter and say, I'll offer you 50 cents on the dollar.
That's right, exactly.
For your business, right? It's going to work that way. But if he's sitting there saying, well, this guy doesn't need to retire, he has a nest egg, maybe you don't have to rush. It's like you always talk about like the car dealership, right? Whenever you go and you don't actually need the car,
that's the best deal.
Is when you get the best deal.
Absolutely.
So it works the same. When you don't actually need to sell your business, you probably get the best deal for your business. Because the moment the guy on the other end knows, oh, he needs to sell, he needs the fund, he needs to transfer this capital to himself, he's gonna go Mr. Potter on you.
Oh, that's right. And the other thing is something that I love to do is save on taxes, right? So in other words, you're creating a pot there, but you're also saving on taxes every time you do that. And I mean, let's face it, I mean, nobody likes to pay taxes. We recognize it's a necessary evil. That's what they say. But in addition to that, taxes are going up. I mean, there's just no doubt about it. We can't stay at these tax levels considering everything that we're doing with regard to all this money that's floating around.
With this level of debt, your money is going to go two ways. Either they're going to tax it away, or the Federal Reserve will come at night. And the way I call inflation is the Federal Reserve goes under your pillow at night and starts like stealing the dollars, the cash from under your pillow. He takes a little,
so it's going to happen. So it's going to happen. So it's the best of both worlds to look at those options, right? Like you said, I mean, whether it be a simple IRA or a SEP plan or a 401k, to create a little something like that.
Just
save
talking
on
with
taxes,
someone you trust, a financial professional you trust, to figure out what's the right method to just be ready for the future. You always want to be ready because and you know what? It's peace of mind too, because once you've got that in place, that your future is that nest egg, that emergency fund is being built. Well, now you don't have to worry about that. That your entire focus then becomes, what's my passion? What's my business? How do I grow it? But as you know, a piece of that growth is now going to protect you on the 65-plus-year-old end.
Exactly.
Right? It protects future you.
Exactly.
So that current you can just be like, okay, what do I want to do today? What do I want to do to grow my business, to do what I love today, and not have to worry about the future?
And that's, I mean, and so those are, when we talk about little mistakes, in one's life, those are the little things that sometimes you say, wow, I wish I would have, or could have done something. And so it's just important to sit back, and I always say as a business, you have lofty goals sometimes, right? You may have a 5-year plan. I would say you have a 5-year plan, but you should have a 1-year outlook and quarterly reviews, right? To see how are we doing? Are we getting to the point where at the end of 1 year we say we've done what we want to do? And part of that is, again, looking at every piece of your business, the future of that business, and your future, how that works. Because when you work for another company, it's easy. But when you work for your own business, it's a whole different world.
There's just more to think about.
Absolutely.
Man, I'll never forget the first day. We were talking about with Cristel, Noel last week, that, the first day I start, I think you may even have been in the Spanish segment. So for those of you watching in English, you're going to get like a taste of what we talked about in Spanish last week, like a sneak preview. But we were just saying how when I started my business in economic research years ago, before I was started in Emergent Financial Services, I sat down first day. I'm like, okay, research ready to go. And then I'm like, no, wait, I have no website. I have no SCC license. I don't have a city license. I don't have I need to do other things as the business owner that affect my business, but aren't necessarily the day-to-day operation of it.
Correct. Yeah.
So you worked on those. You think about Mañana. It's always about, we've got the today.
Exactly.
And
you think,
the Mañana.
what do I need to do today, and how do I prepare for Mañana?
How do I translate my passion into the future? Yeah.
And we have a great business, right?
We have a
entrepreneur.
True entrepreneur, a passionate guy here that's going to come on in a moment. He's a serial entrepreneur. He's the founder of the House of Cuts. He is Fernando Garay. Welcome to Today Mañana.
And we have. Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How about you?
Can you hear me fine?
I can hear you fine.
I hear you perfectly well.
You're going to see me, and Xavier can hear you. So we're sharing.
I know it should be the other way, but what can we do, Fernando?
All right, what's going on? My bad. I had some notifications pop up on my computer I didn't know how to get rid of.
No, you are good. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
We are doing well. I just want to start with congratulations that you are a new father. What is that like with little Fernando Garay El Tercero?
Thank you. I'm a father now. I just had my son 6 weeks ago. Fernando Garay III. I want to show a lot of love to my beautiful lady Kendall for going through 9 months of pregnancy, for us and our family, and going through, delivering life. She created the ultimate creation, which is life, which is something a man would never be able to do. So, I want to send a lot of love to her for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we agree here.
100%. Man, so how are things going for you? I noticed you're in a business that in terms of like being that personal services that sometimes with the pandemic, I know a lot of some that had to close at the beginning, and there's definitely some challenges What are some of the things that you did? I've always wondered, like in personal services, as an example, like for us, we're able to we do Zoom meetings with people. And we do phone calls because we're talking with them. But when you're actually, creating and doing something, I mean, you do masterpieces with people's hair, I have to say. It's just incredible.
Appreciate it.
But how did you, approach some of the challenges in a pandemic time when, you have all these close contact rules and everything? Is there anything that you've learned that's really helped and transformed your business?
So, the first thing, with the pandemic first starting off, there was a mandatory shutdown for businesses like mine, and other industries that are similar, where we had to be shut down for a 2-month period. So automatically, the entrepreneur side of me was like, okay, the first thing I need to do is be able to recreate and rebrand myself and just do something outside of what I'm used to doing on a day-to-day basis, because I can't do it inside of my, brick and mortar location, right?
Absolutely.
So the first thing I did was find a way to get moving. You know what I mean? Find a way to get myself busy, because essentially, the world paused for us, for people like me in my industry.
Right.
The world paused for us, right, for 2 whole months. We didn't know when we were coming back. So the first thing in my first instinct was, all right, it's time to get to work. It's time to get the wheel rolling, right?
So where do you roll? I mean, the thing you do, you said you can't do it anymore. So where do you roll that wheel to?
So the first thing I did is I immediately went to another friend of mine who has a business, Wheels on Wheels LLC. He's a mechanic. He does moving jobs. He does a bunch of labor work. And I was like, okay, I know that you're starting off your business. I know how to run a business. Let me help you run your business. And if you're winning, I know I'll be winning as well. Right?
Nice.
So I immediately got I started doing some dirty work. I had got on the ground, got under some cars. He was teaching me how to work on some cars. I was learning new skills. And it was a great experience of just being outside of the norm, but I was still doing something. You know what I mean? And I was learning. So those first few weeks when I was working with him, I was like, okay, the biggest asset that I have right now in the world where I can't do what I'm not used to doing is the ability to learn skills. Right. Because I've done it before. And that's what I'm currently doing right now, is the ability to learn skills. Right? So I'm like, okay, what are we doing from here? So I learned a little bit about working on cars and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, let me learn how to invest in the market. That's a skill set in itself, right?
Yep. Well, that's a very difficult skill set, though.
It's a difficult skill set, but it's a skill set that can be learned, and that people like us retail investors, we have access to now. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So it's definitely attainable to learn that skill. It takes a lot of time, but you're able to do it, right? So that's something I really wanted to learn. I really tapped into the skill of marketing, how to rebrand, how to brand myself. What are things I could do outside of just a haircut that could really, boost my brand? And to me, those are all skill sets. You know what I mean? There's no talent behind any of that. That's all stuff that you have to learn.
Absolutely.
So anything that you have to learn is considered a skill set. So, I just took my ability to learn, put that to use. I made these shirts, these creator shirts.
Which I love.
I had took the C from the House of Cuts logo, and I made the word creator. So a creator is, by definition, is somebody or someone that brings something into existence. So, automatically I'm like, that's what I am. I bring things into existence. I want to be able to do this. I want to be able to do that.
Yeah, visions, images.
I have the ability to bring those things to life, essentially.
Yeah. So, I mean, you mentioned branding. So, and I just got to say, we were joking before. I don't know if you were watching at the really beginning. One of these days, we got to get Xavier in one of those creator shirts on the show. We got to have him. We got a bet going on here, like how good he's going to look. He's doubtful, but we all think, Jerry and I think he can look good.
I don't think I've ever seen him in a T-shirt, but I think he'll look all right.
Well, you got to come when I'm working in the garden. I got a T-shirt.
There we go. When he's at home, he pulls out some of those old T-shirts. But so when you do, like, because you mentioned branding, like really thinking about how to brand yourself, and I feel like you're someone who really, that's a great skill that you have, that you've learned, and also I think a natural talent as well, but you put a lot of work into it. So how do you view branding? What are things that you as an entrepreneur keep in mind when you're looking to build your brand of who you...
So the biggest asset that any business owner has is yourself, correct? Mm-hmm. So right. You are your brand. You are the face of your company. You are your own brand. And I really tapped into myself during this pandemic. I really want to learn what I'm able to do and really appreciate what I've already created mm-hmm. with my businesses already, right? So I'm like, I had noticed that everything I did, no matter what I did, I was always able to attract, whether that be clientele or money or whatever the case mm-hmm. might be, I was always able to attract. So no matter what I did, I was able to do it. I was able to make shirts. I was able to sell shirts. You know what I mean? I was able to create products that I have here in the barbershop. I was able to sell those. I was able to get down on the ground and work on cars. I was able to have people come and just let me do it. So now I really realize that I'm my biggest asset, right? So no matter what I do, I'm gonna make it happen and make sure that it works. And people like people, man. Like I know that sounds crazy, but people trust people, and once people learn how to trust you, no matter what you put your hands into, is gonna be successful.
I think that's the most important thing, trust, right? I mean, we were talking a little bit about that before, right? I mean, it's and unfortunately, I mean, certainly what we've gone through the last year and a half, or last year, I should say, has been to a certain respect bad, right? Because you can't meet as many people or talk to as many people as you'd love to, right? Because there's a big difference between, even here, we're Skyping. If you were here in person, it's a whole different, you know, the charisma is completely different also. But I agree, it's the more people you meet, the more that you can interface with people, the better you are, right? Because people get to know you, and once, like I said, once they trust you, then everything else flows.
Mm-hmm. So how would you?
So
yeah, go for it.
To kind of respond to what Xavier said, meeting people in person definitely, you know, helps a lot with, you know, in-person businesses. Right now, during the pandemic, especially, everything transferred online. Right, the internet has the biggest access to people that we are able to reach to this day. You know, I could reach 1 million people if I wanted to easily if something went viral, or I could reach 100,000 people. It's a whole lot easier than, you know what I'm saying, filling up a stadium with 100,000 people. It's much easier to just go online and figure out the algorithms. Or
so how do you keep yourself personable then? Like, cause like you can get a thrill when you meet someone in person. And there's that. So how do you like make your brand still feel personable and approachable? Like it's you, even like it's still Fernando Garay, even though it's online, even though you're not there in person.
I'm authentic when I'm online. You know what I'm saying? And 100% authenticity, man, that's what's gonna gain your trust from the people that follow you online or that are friends with you online. Is the authenticity that you provide. Also, the fact that I do have a brick and mortar location and I'm, you know, pretty well known in the community, people can vouch for the authenticity that I'm putting out online.
So it's almost like the combination, in a sense, that because you have that trust factor, that authenticity of who you really are, you carry it online. People are like, yeah, that's the same Fernando I know in person.
That's the same Fernando, you know, the same Fernando that's in the barbershop is the same Fernando that's on Facebook, the same Fernando that's on Instagram. Another great thing to do online, especially on your social media platforms, every social media platform is, you know, your person. Like if I go on Facebook, I'm going to go to Alex Urpí. I'm going to Jerry Miller. Like that's your page, is your website, is your brand. That's what people know you as, right? And I know that sounds crazy, it is, but it is what it is. Everyone's on Facebook, everyone's on Instagram, and if you're not utilizing those social medias, and it's pretty much social media across the board, Twitter, LinkedIn, TikTok, anything, everybody's on there. So you have to be in the mix with everybody else, right? But the best way to get people to engage with you is to be able to provide some valuable information that they can attain, or something that they can learn. Because this past year, everyone is starting to tap into I need to learn something, I need to create value, I need to, I don't want to lose everything. So what is valuable that I can attain? So something I try to do, even in person, is if I run into you, or if I'm going to say a post, it's going to be some valuable information that you could gain from that. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
I just had a quick question. So, Fernando, given where we are today in your brick and mortar, because I mean, I know your creativity. I know it through giving haircuts. Like if someday if I want a New York Yankee logo on my head, I know where to go.
Oh, that's
right?
a dangerous question. Are you a Mets fan?
Yeah.
I don't care what he's going to do the right thing.
Your father
right?
is okay. Okay.
Okay, he'd still do the right thing.
He'd still do the
I
Yankee.
mean, I don't know if I have enough the right hair for that, but anyway, besides that. So what would you say is the current capacity that you're running versus the old days when the shop was completely open?
So before pandemic and post quarantine, is that what you're asking?
So before the pandemic, how many people you had a certain number of people go into your shop, right?
And
so now how many people going compared to then?
Okay, so the flow of people is pretty much consistent, right? There was a big pause considering that we're on campus with UVA. The students had left for about 2 months during their winter break from Thanksgiving until February the 1st. They just came back about 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
But besides that, I mean, a lot of people trust their barbers here at House of Cuts, and they don't want anyone else to touch their head. So there was definitely still that consistent flow of people coming in. We definitely follow COVID guidelines here. We clean every week professionally and then daily on our own. We wear a mask, and we also provide some masks if you don't have one.
Nice.
So we definitely follow our protocols, but yeah, shop definitely has to stay open. People definitely still come in. So with being a barber, that's a need-based service, right?
Right.
That's something you can't attain on the internet. That's not something you can just get anywhere. So that kind of helps me sustain as a business, as a trade. This is a need-based business.
Exactly.
And people need their haircut. Not everybody just wants to do their own hair. A lot of people don't. A lot of people would just rather trust a professional. And here at House of Cuts, we're all professionals.
Yep. Well, and just a testament, I think, also to the quality of what you do and the trust that people had in you, that they're like, no, I want Fernando and his guys. I want the professionals at House of Cuts to be doing my hair. I could do it myself, but I want them to be doing it and just building that in that sense.
Well, it's a different experience.
Sure. Well, definitely. I mean, the
especially
quality.
with his.
It's a very different experience.
Yeah, we had built an atmosphere here. We built a community center here inside these small 4 walls. So it's very family oriented. We treat people like family when they come in. So our goal is, once you come in, there's no need for you to go anywhere else, because now you're home. House of Cuts, a place where you can feel at home, right?
Exactly. Yeah, and I mean, and that just, I think, resonates with a lot of people, and just the way you treat them like family, the way you treat your customers, the way you interact with the community. Because I know you're a guy who loves to give back. I'm always seeing ways that you're passionate about mentoring others, sharing the knowledge that you've learned with others. And so I know a lot of times there's sort of this mentality, I think, that was around that, you build your business first, and then when you retire, you start giving back. It's like, oh yeah, okay, now I'm done building my business. But I feel like you're one of those young, I remember when you were on 525 in the For Adelante magazine, one of those people that sort of reverses that. And really, you're giving back even now and being involved with the community. So what are your thoughts on giving back, even though it's so early in your career, and do you see yourself as a mentor?
So, I mean, then So in my industry, being a barber, giving back for me is just more time equity than anything. I don't have to give up product. I don't really have to give up anything else but just my time,
which is valuable.
So which is very true. Not every business has that labor equity. You know what I mean? They have products, they have other things that they can't just give away, or else they will lose, equity in their business, right? You can't give away all the time. So I've definitely gave some of my time back to the community for sure. Now what I really try to tap into is what valuable information can I give to the general public. Valuable information is amazing because it's free, it's fast, and it's up to the other person if they want to receive it or not, right?
If they want to use it or not, also, yeah, exactly. That's perfectly
so
said.
Like now, what I do, so even inside the shop, the way I give back is I personally feel like you should leave my shop with some kind of valuable information that will make you better or that could help you move further along in what your goals are. I'm super big into that. The last week I was able to sign 3 people up with a Robinhood stock portfolio. They were able to sign up. I helped them, do that. I'm by no means a financial advisor. I would say that now. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not a financial expert. But with the little knowledge that you have, I do try to help as many people as I can. Right? If someone has ideas about what businesses they want to start up, how do they go about it? I'm more than willing to give my input in, and hope that they leave my business with some valuable information. That's the biggest way of giving back. Is if you teach a man how to fish, so he'll eat forever. But if you give a man a fish one time, he'll eat for the day.
So beautifully said. Yeah, we love that one.
Yeah, we love that one. Absolutely.
My dad's been telling me that one since I was
2 years old, I think.
So maybe 2 years old. But still so true. So true. So I gotta ask. When I asked for your title, you gave me serial entrepreneur, which I love,
yes,
by the way. But serial means you're always on to the new thing. You've got all these ideas. So what's new in the pipeline for serial entrepreneur Fernando Garay?
Okay, so we have House of Cuts Barber Studio. That's the first original. That's the very first business that I started. So from there, I've been able to branch off. And I'm about to launch a new business, which is the Creator Booking app. So what that is, it's an online platform for appointment-based businesses. It was an online booking platform for appointment-based businesses in personal service. Whether you're a barbershop, a hair salon, tattoo parlor, nail salon, wax center, so on and so forth, right? So we're actually in the process right now. I've been working on it since last May, and it's February now. So it's definitely been almost about a year. Yeah, so it's definitely been almost about a year, and we're actually in the process of App Store review with Apple and Google Play, and we submitted last night actually to the App Store. So they're in review right now. We're hoping to launch. We're hoping to do a soft launch this weekend, hopefully either today or tomorrow.
Awesome.
And we're gonna start here at House of Cuts using this and using House of Cuts as the first example of how the app actually works and runs. So that's what I've been working on. It's gonna be available on iTunes and Google Play, or Apple App Store and Google Play. Also, there's a web app, so you could just go on your browser, do it through there, also on your laptop computer. And
is it just Charlottesville, or are we talking, what's the area, what's the scope?
We're talking pretty much anywhere around the world, man.
Wow.
So if you're a business in China, India, or wherever, whatever countries that allow, Apple downloads, definitely it's available.
Wow. So you get on there as a small business owner. Any cost, or you could just sign up for people to get on there?
So it's marketed towards the shop owner, right? So let's say House of Cuts has a profile, and I have about 4 guys that work with me right now. Well, there's 5 of us in total if you want to include myself, right? So there's different packages that are available. There's the individual package that goes for $29.99. There's one shop 5 specialist package which goes for $49.99, and so on and so forth. So the bigger the bigger your business is, and the bigger the more people you have working for you, or independent contractors that work inside of your business, the bigger the packages get, all the way up to an unlimited package, the Diamond Creator package, which is $149.99, and that's if you have a franchise business. You can control all of your franchises right there on one app. All the independent contractors that work under you right there through the one profile. So that's pretty cool, right there.
That's awesome. And then people just go on and book through the app.
So yes, so all the guys that work in my shop, or that work under a shop, will be able to access their profiles for free, and they'll have their own personal schedules on there that they could access and gain clients through the shop's profile that they're under.
That's going to be huge.
That's
I think
amazing.
Especially that'll be really helpful in this environment and in Charlottesville too. Just thinking locally.
Yeah, and another feature that's on there, if you're an independent contractor or just a person looking for work that is licensed for personal service, you can find different businesses that are in your area, and you can submit your resume to any business that's right there in your area.
So job seeking and booking all in one app.
Yes, sir.
That is awesome. That is sweet.
Yeah, and they'll be able to do that.
Yeah, go for it.
What happened?
Oh, go for it. Xavier was just jumping in that he thinks it's an excellent idea. He's giving you some creds there.
Oh yeah, no, go ahead, Xavier. Yeah, that was pretty much it.
Yeah, but that's awesome. One last thing I did want to say. So, your family, I've known your grandma, old grandma Morris, the founder of Forward Adelante, for years now. And I just realized there's an amazing entrepreneurial vein. I mean, she has it. Your mom and dad have it. Your sister Lily is singer-songwriter here in Charlottesville. Your sister Anna, I think she was on Let's Make a Deal. So she's already, I give it 2 years before like everyone in San Diego knows who she is. So, I mean, how do you, growing up, was there always a sense of that entrepreneurship instilled in you? Or were there any lessons that you had growing up in your family that really you think helped make you the entrepreneur that you are today?
Yeah, so my grandma, Olga, when she first started the Forward Adelante magazines here, I think we're talking about 10 years ago, right? Maybe 12 years ago. Yeah, I used to be her road dog, right? So, and one thing she really made me do was really step out of my comfort zone at a really young age. She would make me go into different locations, different businesses, and ask the managers or owners if we could place these magazines inside of their store, right? So she would take me to shopping centers, and she was like, okay, go into these 5 different businesses and ask them if you could do this. And she really pushed me out of my comfort zone, and I would go in by myself.
Wow, by yourself.
And I was just like, wow. So she definitely taught me how to get out of my comfort zone. She taught me how to shake people's hands. She definitely taught me. She was a great example of an entrepreneur, right? She did real estate. She did Forward Adelante, which is the Latino magazine. And so I always had that, I always had her to look up to. So she always would give me gems. And one of her biggest things was don't do anything that you do not want to do. You know what I'm saying? Stay true to yourself. Be authentic to yourself. Don't chase the money, because if you chase the money, it's going to run from you. You know what I'm saying? You want to attract it.
Yes. That's a good line.
Yeah, you want to attract it. You know what I'm saying? If you attract money, it's just going to come to you. If you're chasing after it, it's going to run from you.
Oh, man, we need to... Judah, I know Jerry's always telling you sizzle reel. We got to sizzle reel this one.
And that also ties back into you being your brand, right? Once you are your own brand, you attract what comes to you.
Absolutely. Man, Fernando, this has been just so incredible. I feel like you're a gold mine of just great spirit, great inspiration, great passion. It's
Well,
been
tremendous inspiration for, folks, that are young like you.
Yeah,
I mean,
definitely.
everything you've done and what you created just in the last year. I mean, you didn't stop and sit back and say, I guess I just have to wait and collect my PPP or whatever else people were collecting and wait until everything opens up again. You went out there and did other things. And as you said, you learned, right? You realize that you have the ability to learn other talents. I mean, yourself, you're already talented, but expand on those talents.
yeah,
Fabulous.
but thank you so much for coming on. It's been a real pleasure. We got to have you again. All righty.
I'm definitely glad to come on whenever. Just send the invite, and I appreciate the love and the spotlight, man. I sure do appreciate it.
Absolutely, you got it. Take care,
Thank you,
Fernando.
Fernando.
Thank you.
All right, you guys. Thank you again.
So incredible. Yeah, that was
Yeah,
that was
good.
fun. That was fun. I was getting into that for sure. That's
No, that was. It's again, it's the spirit, right? The entrepreneurial spirit is just amazing, and you meet different people that just have it in different ways.
Yeah.
But again, you can see that everybody has a certain amount of I guess that goal or dream. And to be able to pursue that, it's not always easy, but
Yeah.
you stay on top of it, and that's a great line from Olga. Really, it's you don't chase. No, you don't start a
chase.
business because you think it's going to make you money. You start a business because you love it, and money will come towards you.
Yeah.
That's just a great line.
the attraction line. We need to put that everywhere.
Absolutely,
If you
yeah.
chase the money, it runs from you. If you attract the money, it comes
Exactly.
to you. It's so true.
Yeah. If you do what you love to do, right, and that comes across, people come to you, right? That's just the way it works.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely we're going to definitely have him back.
Yeah, we will.
There's so much to learn. So much to learn there. So I know before we definitely have some amazing information. I know you've been on top of this. Just incredible. There's so much going on in terms of resources that are coming out. Because I know, especially, I mean, there's so many passionate entrepreneurs in the community, restaurateurs, so forth, that are definitely struggling right now, and they're trying to pivot. They're trying to learn new things, like Fernando's saying. But there's also, I think, there's definitely some resources, I think, to help them out. So we're going to share a couple of those. I know you've got a few. I've got a few.
Exactly.
We're going to do it in English and Spanish. So we'll have both languages. So we might repeat ourselves, but if you only speak one of the two, the Latinos will know. Well, unfortunately, you'll have to live with sitting through both. But if you don't speak Spanish, you'll be all right. You only have to hear it once. So I know you've got. What do you have for us?
Well, no. So
Xavier?
the important thing is, as like Fernando said, I mean, in his case, it's working out well, but not everybody. If you look at, I mean, you look at places. I mean, like you look at New York, they're just starting up opening restaurants, right? You look at restaurants aren't here; they're not at full capacity, so they're still struggling. There's a lot of businesses that are still struggling.
Absolutely.
And so all I want to remind people is that, remember, there's the new PPP, right?
Second round.
The second round, and it works in two ways. One is if you already received one, right? That doesn't mean that you're locked out. You can still apply for the second one. The best way to do that is really to go back to the person that you received the first one, because they have your information. There are I believe some forms that have to be filled out through the SBA. So the important thing is to make sure you have all the paperwork. Go to the bank you already had that with, and show them that your business is still struggling. And if you show that your business continues to struggle compared to what it was in 2019, for example, right? Because 2020 is over. And if you have taxes, I know if you already have had your taxes for 2020, that's great, because you can show your taxes for 2020, show your taxes for 2019, show the decline in revenue, and then you can apply for the new PPP. And remember, the old PPP at this point has been all forgiven, so remember that. So it's not like you have to carry that forward. That's been forgiven as far as that debt. So go back to your bank. If you haven't received anything, again, there's funds there for those that didn't receive it. There's funds there for those that did receive it already. But the important thing is it's alive and well. It ends in March 31st, so you really have to go out there now and pursue it, go after it. And by all means, if you need any help, I'm sure there's lots of people help, and we're willing to help. So you can
we're always
contact us, and anything we can do for you, we will.
Absolutely. Yeah, I have a couple here. Definitely want people to know about Employee Retention Credit, IRS. We'll put some links out there for you. If you retained your employees last year, right? But you had a large cut in revenues, I think around 50%. You can get credit for the employees you retain in terms of the taxes that you would normally pay on those employees. So definitely look that up, get that information. Thank you to Johnny Ornelas, friend of the program, for sharing this with us. He's been huge on getting this information to us. We did some research. You definitely want to look into this. There's also DoorDash grant. DoorDash is partnering with Virginia Restaurant Lodging Travel Association. $3,500 grants they are giving out. That's still open. We'll share that link. Just search if you want to look it up before we even share it in the comment section. Search Virginia Restaurant Association DoorDash Relief Grant. We're going to share this now in Spanish. Vamos a.
And then there was just one more.
One?
There was also the shuttered venue operator grant, and that's for essentially like if you're a musician or you own a theater, those are special grants for those type of people, and I'm sure those are the type of people might have gotten hurt even the most. So pursue that. We'll also provide a link for that, but that's an opportunity. And if you're a restaurant that used to have mariachi players, and because of that,
let them know
exactly.
Let them know about these opportunities.
So these are opportunities for them.
Claro, y vamos a compartirlo también.
También en español.
En español. Primero, Employee Retention Credit. Es un crédito. Si usted es un negocio que tenía que mantener sus empleados, podemos recibir crédito en los impuestos que normalmente pagan ustedes para los empleados. Entonces, se puede ver en el IRS, se llama Employee Retention Credit. Muchas gracias, muchísimas gracias a Johnny Ornelas, amigo del programa, por compartir esta información con nosotros, para que nosotros podamos compartir con ustedes. Y también DoorDash Restaurant Relief Grant. Se puede buscar en línea. Vamos a compartir el link, la dirección también, pero es un beta en combinación con DoorDash y Virginia Restaurant Lodging Travel Association. Es un beta de $3,500. Hay más de 100 oportunidades, más de 100 personas van a recibir $3,500, y es por restaurantes que han sufrido a causa de la pandemia. Es un recurso para ustedes.
No, eso es muy importante. Y también para la gente que todavía se recuerda del PPP, de los préstamos, hay préstamos de nuevo, hay préstamos para gente que ya pudieron obtener el préstamo antes. Si necesitan más, lo pueden obtener. La mejor manera de hacerlo es de ir al banco o al lugar donde se lo prestaron, porque ellos ya tienen toda su información. Si han podido hacer los impuestos de 2020 y pueden indicar que lo que ganaron en 2020 es mucho menos que 2019, es importante.
Y es para los restaurantes también.
Para todos.
Y negocios específicos.
Eso sí, sientes
este tiempo.
Sí, es para restaurantes, muchos negocios que necesitan ayuda. Sí. No importa qué clase de negocio es. Tienes que enseñar que sin duda no pudiste trabajar como quisieras trabajar. Y si no pudiste obtener en el año pasado el PPP, también puedes probar de nuevo. Así que es importante. Si necesitan información, por favor, contáctanos a Emergent. fs.com o llámenos por teléfono. Sí. Estamos aquí abiertos para ayudarlos en cualquier manera que podemos ayudarlos.
Sí, podemos ayudar. Y también, one more piece of information we definitely want to share with you. So, we're powered by Cristel Noel State Farm Agency. Cristel Noel, and Judah, maybe you could share this with us on the screen. You'll see it popping up as I talked about it here. Cristel Noel is partnering with Sombreros this coming Wednesday, February 17th. They're going to be giving away $5 coupons for customers that made an order to Sombreros from 10:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. So there is no reason. I mean, you should already be going to Sombreros for lunch if you're in Charlottesville, because it's so delicious, the huaraches and the tamales. It's incredible. Their menu has expanded to even more incredible things than I thought were possible. I know. And they even have breakfast, huevos rancheros. Which I need to go have. So if you need to be going to Sombreros, but now if you go to Sombreros, next Wednesday from 10:30 to 12:30, Cristel Noel Agency will give you a $5 coupon. So there really is no excuse at this point
that's right.
not to go to Sombreros this coming Wednesday, February 17th, 10:30 to 12:30, $5 coupons. Thank you, Sombreros. Thank you, Cristel, Noel, State Farm Agency, one of the people powering Today y Mañana. And
we want to say, yes, I mean, we always forget, but it's important.
Yes.
We want to thank two people, two very important people. One is Jerry, because he reached out to us last year, and he's been extremely influential and helpful. Anytime you see an improvement in Alex and I, it's all because of Jerry. It has nothing to do with our talent. And we also want to thank Judah, because every time I come in here, he's behind the scenes, and I tell Judah, I said, you make this so easy.
Exactly.
I look at all this equipment here and everything that goes on, that, I mean, the links go out. So Judah, you're a God gift. Thank you so much.
Judah's the guy, like when we made the Chiefs mistake in the Super Bowl, he's got the little X rewind button on the Xbox controller. Exactly. He's like, I'll fix this.
Exactly.
These guys may not know what they're doing, but I do.
Absolutely.
So thank you all. Thank you for joining us. Without you guys watching, there would be no Today Mañana.
That's right.
So thank you so much. We're thrilled. Next time, we are going to have on two great guests. We're going to have Johnny Ornelas, friend of the program, from Guadalajara. We're going to have on Fernando Tizon. He is the owner of Little Manila, which is coming to Dairy Market.
Wow.
Very soon. So awesome. Going to be an awesome show. Be sure to join us. Thank you so much once again for joining us. We hope you have a wonderful day. And until next time, hasta mañana.